2020 has been a really rough year, but don't worry, Tech YES is going to be coming in today as Santa, bringing that present with showing you guys how you can build a PC that can game for under $100. And this comes about with picking up deals like this, a graphics card that had no fan on it. And so what we did was we got a couple of zip ties attached to 12cm fan, and this is an RX 560. Then we've got two used drives which are going to couple with this banged up PC that we picked up for $37 that had the X58 motherboard and i7 CPU, first gen, and also a cooler and power supply in it. Then all these parts, after we've given them some Tech YES Lovin, we're gonna chuck them in this new old stock case that we got, which is from the 2005 era, and we got this for roughly $7.50. All the prices I'll put up on the screen for you guys. So let's pull this dirty PC apart and then transfer it into a more suitable new home. Today's video is brought to you by SCD Keys, delivering you that retail single end user license key for only $12 after you use the coupon code BFTYC. That's right, this month only, you can get a 30% discount using that coupon and link in the description below. After all that time, I finally get to say it again. That is, after all that tech. After all that tech. Yes! Love it. After all that time, I finally get to say it again. After all that time, I finally get to say it again. Yes! Lovin. We now have a product that's ready to boot, ready to install on our case. But one thing I'm just pretty excited because I haven't done this for a little while with all the new products coming out and stuff. This is kind of like therapy for me. However, the logic behind this is that we're just booting it up, making sure everything works before we install it in the case. And the reason being is if we put in the case and something's not working, then we haven't wasted all that time in replacing whatever could be faulty. Now, this is actually a good practice for new builds just as well as it is for used builds, because even then when you buy a new PC, you could come in to some faulty DDR4 memory. However, with this board, nothing was faulty, but we had to change over from triple channel mode to dual channel mode because it was just giving out a recovering lost DRAM file size, which is, sometimes this happens on X58 gigabyte boards in particular. On a budget, of course. So what we saw from this display of benchmarks on this beautiful banger right here was two of the titles did pretty well. And World of Warcraft, the good news is if you guys want to play this game even at 1080p, something like this with a first gen i7 and an RX 560 with a fan zip tied to it will do extremely well, where we were getting over 120 FPS with good 1% and 0.1% lows, and the whole system didn't even get over 65 degrees. And this is in my hot ambient climates here of 27 degrees. So what this means is that World of Warcraft will pretty much run on a lot of potatoes out there. Now, we did have the graphics settings set to the 3 preset, and I found that this gave the best blend between smooth FPS and graphical detail. Then moving on to CSGO, we had 1080p medium settings. They've overhauled this game where it kind of does look a little bit better nowadays, and we're getting from 100 to 150 average FPS. I couldn't actually measure in this game properly because the new CSGO now blocks out River Tuner from benchmarking the title. However, it does seem like the 1% or at least the 0.1% lows are not that good. That did not stop me from playing this free-to-play game and having a good time. Though, the last title we're going to pull up here, and this will sort of give us a little bit of a shock to the system in 2020 with $100, and that is Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where we got here at 1080p, 4 FPS at 100% screen res. And then we stopped it down to 50% screen res, which would make it around a true 720p picture. We were getting 50 FPS on the lowest settings. and the 1% low wasn't too bad either. So basically, this PC, if you want to play the latest titles, you're probably going to get a half decent experience at 720p. Though if you want to play some of the titles that have been around for a few years, you're going to get a very smooth experience. And I've got to say that a lot of the titles that I play have been around for a few years because they've got the gameplay to back it up. Though, let's talk about this box right here. The case, absolutely phenomenal. I was surprised that these old 2005 cases can perform so well in terms of temperature. Now, the whole build was pushing out around 240 watts while we were gaming, but that didn't stop it from keeping the temperatures pretty cool, where at first gen i7 will put out quite a bit of heat, and this thing was handling it absolutely fine. The 12 centimeter fan that we zip tied onto that 560, that was doing an absolutely fine job too. However, since this case was designed back when it was in 2005, the companies that designed these outlandish dragon themed cases didn't really have noise as a top priority, where I gave you guys a quick listen, but ASMR. It's not unbearable, but it is definitely a lot noisier than a lot of newer builds, especially if you're into more expensive NZXT, Corsair, and Fractal cases. Though for me personally, this was the build where I had the most fun this month so far, where I've given these products Tech YES Lovin from tip to toe. And it comes for me as a bit of a break from all this new stuff that's being released. And we've been covering it here at Tech YES City. We've got 6800, 6800 XT, 6900 XTs. NVIDIA's got 4 different graphics cards they've released. The AMD's released a heap of different CPUs. And I just hope that they will stop releasing so many new products, because I like to cover it in the sense that I get a feel of where the new market's going, and especially in terms of that price performance. But this right here is definitely where it's at if you want to have a bit of fun and not risk losing much money or any money at all. And in this case, if we put together a nice little kit, we can even make a couple of bucks if we reflip it on the used market. So that's what, for me, used parts is all about. It's about having a lot of fun building a PC, getting into it, seeing what FPS you can pull out in certain titles, and of course in the process, giving parts that people otherwise throw away a new life and a new meaning. The one thing that we didn't do, however, with this build was overclock it, and there's 2 reasons for that. The first reason, we were using an RX 560. It's not the most powerful graphics card out there. Say for instance we had an RX 580 on this build, I would have easily prioritized overclocking on this first gen i7 950 much more. But the second thing was we were using the stock cooler as well. And the stock coolers aren't that capable in terms of getting more, especially out of a first gen i7. So with that in mind, I decided to avoid overclocking this time around, but usually I'd definitely be overclocking if I was putting in a 6-core 12-threaded X5650, for example, which this motherboard is capable of doing that. But one thing that we did do was lock in those XMP profiles, which does give us a smooth boost to FPS. And that aside, if you guys enjoyed today's video, then be sure to hit that like button for us and for the continuation of the used price performance and the Tech YES Lovin. And do let us know in the comment section below, what was your favorite piece of today's build? Love reading those thoughts and opinions as always, just like this question of the day here, which comes from Ryan Hensley. And they ask, you didn't clarify, is this for Australia, USA, or both, or around the globe minus a few locations? Granted, they don't allow certain things to enter as giveaways. So this is for the RX 6800, which we announced at the start of that video that we're going to be giving away this card because of the GPU shortages worldwide. So it is a worldwide giveaway. If there are certain restrictions in your country, if you win, then just send us a reply and I'll technically sell you the card for $1. Let's just put it that way. The second part of this question was about the 5700 non-X, flashing it to an XT, and they were having problems with it crashing on the stock BIOS. So that is a problem where the 5700 XT would be, I guess, slightly binned better, and that it has a higher, more aggressive clock speed out of the box, and so your 5700 didn't make the cut. And in that case, we did state that in that video. I'll put the link up here, where in the case of the gaming X5700 that I got, it was flashing to a 5700 XT. It's kind of like halfway in between, but it worked flawlessly. But you can come into problems if you try to flash, say, an RX 470 to a 570 and a 480 to a 580, where it just won't be as good as a binned GPU silicon as that one you're trying to flash it to. So in that case, that's where you use the backup BIOS that you've got and you flash it back to its original state, and you just call it a day and live to fight another day. And speaking of living to fight another day, if you guys enjoyed this one, you've stayed this far, and you're enjoying that Tech YES content, then you know what to do. Hit that sub button, ring that bell, and I'll catch you in another tech video very soon. Peace out for now. Bye.